Hey guys, welcome back to MGTOW Money, the only MGTOW source with consistent, actionable lifestyle information for my fellow MGTOWs out there. And as I had mentioned previously, the purpose of these broadcasts is not going to be discussing the theoretical and why you shouldn't involve yourself with women. That, frankly, should be self-evident today, especially in the Western world for the Western man, the vast majority of who is listening in here. So with that said, I recently heard a well-known MGTOW discussing the dangers of dating in the Western world, but just be careful, etc. And I would argue just the opposite. I would say you don't need to be careful. Just don't do it. Just say no, like Nancy Reagan used to say in the 80s. Just say no to Western women. Your life will be better. So with that said, this is an actionable, take action, do things after you leave here broadcast. So to follow up on last week's basics discussion, I was discussing the basics and I gave everyone that was listening some homework. And I said, I want you to write down, just think about the basics of what you need to survive. What in a state of nature, what you're on an island somewhere, you're off by yourself, you're in the middle of the woods, whatever, in a basic state of nature, what do you need to survive ideally? Assuming, of course, there's some sort of electric and internet, etc. So I wrote down a few basics that I need to survive to get me to a subsistence level. I need housing, I need food, and I need some sort of minimal clothing. And at least for me, one thing that's very important is internet access. It would be absolutely critical to me, even if it was old dial-up internet access, I would need some form of internet access. But other than that, I don't need much. A car, that would be nice. It'd be a nice luxury. That'd be fantastic. But I can walk if necessary. I can take a bicycle. I can get a scooter. I can take a bus in many parts of the area. Maybe I live in an area where there's a train. Maybe there's subways, etc. There are other forms of transportation besides that. So again, I want you to think about that, and I assume that you already have. So I wrote down mine, and I was thinking, okay, so those are my basics that I need. I need housing, food, clothing, internet. What would that cost me? Well, let's see. Running some raw figures. Again, this is directly applicable to my lifestyle where I live geographically, etc. This will vary, but I think you would find this applies to many parts of the world. I'm talking about the Midwestern United States. I'm talking about the Southeastern United States. I'm talking about parts of Southeast Asia. I'm talking about parts of Central and South America, including Mexico, by the way. You could probably live that sort of lifestyle, housing, food, clothing, internet, for roughly $1,000 US a month. $1,000 US a month, you could basically cover that. Is this a lap of luxury? No. But you're not living in a ghetto, I can assure you. You're living a reasonable lifestyle, an okay lifestyle. So let's break that down a step further. So I've got a goal now in my head. I need $1,000 a month for my basic subsistence lifestyle, etc. Breaking it down, I need about $250, $260 a week, something like that, around about 33 US dollars a day. Wow. 33 US dollars a day. That's not a lot, is it? It's not too terribly difficult if you work just a little bit. And I'm not even talking about working in getting a job sense, but of course you could work part-time and that type of thing. But my point being, I hope, is very simple, that you can see that for a relatively small amount of money, $1,000 a month or so, $1,000 US or so, you could be okay. And to take that a step further, if you own your own housing, if you own your own shelter, it could be that much lower. So to give you some examples, what if, for example, you had a small house or condominium in an area where it was very inexpensive, where the property taxes were low, that type of thing. And yes, there are many parts, at least of the United States, as well as other parts of the world where they don't even have property taxes, for example, where this is more than possible. Or another example, what if you had an RV? You're a permanent RV person, or even you owned a mobile home. Mobile homes are very popular in many parts of the world. So that would be another thing to consider. A third option that I was thinking about, what if you purchased a duplex and lived in half? In other words, you rent half and you lived in the other half. There again, if you do those types of things, you can easily see how very conceivable living on $1,000 a month, $33 a day approximately, is not just possible, it's achievable. It is something you can do. And I want you to see this as an option, because remember, I was talking about this before. This is all about options. This is all about increasing your options. This is all about you realizing you are not stuck where you are. You always have options. There's always other choices. Just sometimes they're a little bit difficult to see, and I'm speaking from experience, but there are options, and other people can sometimes open your eyes to what those options are. And it could certainly be better than if you're dealing with some sort of soul-crushing job that you feel like, well, I have to go to work to do X. I have to do Y. Au contraire, you don't have to do anything. You make a choice. And this brings back a very important point, and the point of this entire exercise. I want you to be inspired. I want you to realize that the things you're doing as a MGTOW, you are making a choice. If you are not happy with your present situation, you have a choice to change it. It might be an expensive price you have to pay to change your circumstances. It might be difficult if you quit your job and have to go find another one. It might be difficult if you decide, well, maybe I need to downsize my big house to a small house, or maybe, you know what, that boat that I'm making a $200 a month payment on, man, I really hate to get rid of it, but boy, I could use that money and I don't use it that often to begin with, etc. Maybe you can do those things. Not just should I say maybe, you can do those things. It is your choice. You do have that choice. And remember, everything in life is about trade-offs. There are no solutions. Everything is about trade-offs, and you have to decide how much of your finite life energy do you want to trade to get X, Y, or Z? How much of your life energy do you want to trade to get that new car, to get that new Cadillac, to get that new house? I've got to have a house, and it must be 300 square meters, approximately 3,300 square feet. Because nobody could possibly want to live in anything smaller. And all my friends would laugh at me, and I'd feel like I'd be ostracized, etc. Then you've made that choice. That's your choice. But as a MGTOW, I want you to know you have many, many, many other choices. Don't ever feel like you're trapped. Don't ever feel like you're stuck. You have choices. So, with that said, let's shift gears here for a moment, and let's talk about a new topic. And this, of course, ties into actionable things that you can do. And specifically, we're going to talk about maximizing your money. Okay, so I've got this $1,000 a month, or I've got X number of dollars a month. How do I maximize that money? The biggest cost for nearly everyone who walks this planet is the following. It's their housing. It's their shelter. And I know I mentioned that before, but it is absolutely critical that you realize the big elephant in the room, the huge obstacle that you've got to fix, that you've got to overcome, that you've got to come up with a solution for is housing. Because again, speaking from experience and speaking from the experience of many other people, once they got the housing issue, if you will, the shelter issue fixed, solved, if you will, that's when everything else is easy. It's cake. As a person told me who lives in a foreign country, hey, after I got my house and it was all paid for in cash, I was living for free. And because he was talking about how he has no maintenance, he lives in a condo in this particular case, and he is not living literally for free, but he has no property taxes. He has minimal association fee to pay every month. It's just a fantastic way of life. And by the way, it's right on the beach. So this is what we're going to do. Today, we're going to talk about how you can get control of your housing, how you can get control of your shelter cost. Because after you do, again, speaking from experience, Everything else is a lot easier. It's much, much more simpler. Everything else becomes much more clearer. And it becomes even that much easier if you only have $1,000 a month coming in. So if you start looking at alternative ways of housing, for example, if you decide that, hey, maybe I could live in an RV, maybe I could live in a mobile home, maybe I could live in a small condo, maybe I could live in a half of a duplex. You do those things. That's when you can change your life. You can change your life by doing that. So here's your homework. I want you to think, and you don't have to tell anyone. This can be your secret, just your secret, silently in your mind. Just do a thought experiment. Not now, not even an hour from now, but just a little bit. Just think about what I'm about to say. I want you to think about moving. I want you to think about moving where you live to somewhere else. Now, whether you think about moving across the street, whether you think about moving 20 miles away, 100 miles away, 5,000 kilometers away, it doesn't make any difference. But I just want you to play around with that thought in your mind. And specifically, I want you to think about moving to somewhere where it is lower cost. So wherever you might be living today, right now, let's just say if you move somewhere that was lower cost, what impact would that have on your life? What impact would that have on your life? It would probably be very, very positive. And furthermore, it would probably open up some greater options for you, because if you only have a finite amount of money coming in every month, it would give you greater monies to spread around to other things. So again, the most expensive thing you have in your life today is housing. And so I just want you to do a thought experiment with me. Think about moving. Think about moving somewhere else. Across the street, maybe it's a smaller house, less expensive. Oh God, I can move to another state. Yeah, you can move to another state. Oh, I'm going to lose all my friends, my family. Okay, well, maybe you don't have to move to another state. Maybe you can move maybe 30 miles away from where you are now if it's that important to you. Remember, there are no solutions. There are only trade-offs here. But the point is, you're not stuck. You have choices. Don't ever forget that. You're not stuck. You have choices. And if you choose to stay exactly where you are because this is where I'm contented and I'm not moving and hell or high water is not going to move me out of this place, that's your choice. Then don't tell anyone that you have to do something. No, you've chosen to do something. But the point is, if you can get your housing under control, you get your shelter cost under control, I can promise you, I can assure you, everything will be much clearer and easier for you to deal with in terms of your financial life. So again, in summary, here's your homework. You're going to think about moving. You're going to think about physically thinking about that possibility of maybe moving somewhere else, possibly living somewhere else, maybe even living outside the United States. That'll be a future topic for another subject, and I've got firsthand experience with that, as well as I can discuss stories of many other people who are living outside their countries of origin, and they're extremely happy, I can assure you. And one of the reasons why they've chosen to do so is because it allows them to control their cost in terms of housing cost. I furthermore can tell you, I know of people that even split their time between living in one country part of the year and living in another country the other part of the year. So they kind of get the best of both worlds. So that's another possibility, again, for future broadcasts. All right. Guys, thanks so much for joining me. We will be getting back together soon. Don't forget your homework. Look forward to talking to you again.